I've always been skeptical of the talking point that all movies suck now. If you've been following film discourse for long enough, you know that people have been saying that forever, as last decade's slop becomes this decade's classics. That being said, the thing that could convince me that things have gotten worse is how disposable the studios treat their own films, in a way we haven't seen since the birth of cinema. From studios canceling finished movies to removing shows from streaming for a tax write-off, it is something that is measurably worse in Hollywood. The newest addition to that list would have to be Disney rejecting a pitch for what would be a slam dunk for the Star Wars franchise. For those of you who don't know, this week Adam Driver goes out and drops the fact that he was working on a pitch for a Star Wars movie called The Hunt for Ben Solo with Steven Soderbergh. It was pitched to Lucasfilm and they loved the idea. It was then brought to Bob Iger and Alan Bergman at Disney, who rejected the film because, quote, they couldn't see how Ben Solo was alive. After that grenade was thrown into the middle of the Star Wars discourse, pretty much the entire fandom went rabid, and now we have social media campaigns, videos, petitions, and even a plain banner demanding that Disney greenlight and make Star Wars The Hunt for Ben Solo. I gotta say, as a Star Wars fan who is pretty ambivalent about the Disney Plus shows, it has been so refreshing to see this new excitement and a common goal in the fandom. Adam Driver gave us Star Wars fans exactly what we needed to stop fighting each other and unite for a shared purpose. You see, in the last 4 years or so, the Star Wars discourse has been in a vicious cycle, which I have lovingly called the Disney Star Wars loop. Basically how it works is that a new Star Wars thing releases, most often a new Disney Plus series, which explores or fleshes out something that is only implied in some other pre-established Star Wars thing. Then some fans get really mad about this, and then grifters milk the controversy for all it's worth. This eats up the entire period around the show's release while it's still relevant. By the time it starts to die down, the next thing comes out, and then the whole thing starts all over again. Now, as much as I've hated this from where I'm standing, I wouldn't be surprised if it directly led to these shows being more successful. I guarantee drumming up controversy like this leads to more people either hate watching the show or just tuning in to see what all the fuss is about. I know a lot of people who hate watch the show probably just pirate it, but even then, the outrage mobilizes people who want to defend the show and then gets them to watch something they might not normally watch. So Disney makes subscription money, the grifters make YouTube money, and everybody who doesn't have a financial stake in this franchise is left to sort through the rubble. Anyways, I'm glad we were finally freed from that vicious cycle, and I'm betting that The Mandalorian and Grogu will play it so safe as to avoid trapping us in that, at least for now. You have to think Adam Driver knew what he was doing, right? If I spent 2 years of my life working on a script and a pitch for a movie only for it to be rejected by the studio, I would want to throw that back in the studio's face and let them deal with the fallout from the fans. The sad thing is, this happens all the time. If only we knew how many masterpieces are rejected by the studios or canceled before getting off the ground. It's also sad because projects die for so many reasons outside the filmmaker's control. These more high-profile examples are just the ones that get out to the public. Now, obviously, studios have to be picky with what they choose to make and what not to make. After all, they're the ones that are going to be putting up hundreds of millions of dollars for it. The risk is there with every project, and even a beloved movie isn't much comfort if it meant the death of a studio, which means that fewer total movies can be made. Now, even with all that in mind, Disney needs to greenlight The Hunt for Ben Solo. When The Rise of Skywalker came out, I was let down despite overall enjoying the film, especially with how little the freshly redeemed Ben Solo gets to do, not even having any dialogue. Look, I get that it's likely intentional. The movie wants us to miss him, and a common complaint from the prequels and the special editions was adding dialogue where none was needed. In this case, however, I think it would have been nice to give him something, especially since Palpatine is the one who has been manipulating him for over half his life. I think the thing is, too, he's also around long enough for the silence to get a little awkward. Look, I don't need him quipping the whole time, but there's a lot of middle ground between Star-Lord and mute. I also always thought it was strange that Ben never got a Force Ghost appearance at the end of the film. Now, from the lore side, the requirement for special training to become a Force Ghost was forgotten almost as quickly as it was introduced. I can also see the argument that it would be too similar to the end of Return of the Jedi, but if so, is that really where J.J. Abrams draws the line at callbacks to the original trilogy? My only guess for the last 6 years now has been that since Ben transferred his Force energy into Rey, that maybe like his soul merged with hers, sort of uniting the Force dyad or something like that. And even that is my best guess and just sort of my de facto headcanon, but I'm totally okay with being proven wrong if it means we get to see The Hunt for Ben Solo. Now, that also does kind of get into how exactly Ben would be brought back. It would definitely be an interesting thing to explore. We don't know how the movie would tackle the issue, and the only hint we got from Driver is that the movie would be character-focused. I'm also not really too worried about it as long as it's done well. And can we just be real for a minute? If Ahsoka Tano gets to be immortal simply because Dave Filoni likes her, we can think of a way to save Ben Solo. I don't even hate Ahsoka sticking around. The key is just to do it in a way that justifies bringing the character back. Remember, it was Star Wars itself that introduced the phrase, "no one's ever really gone," which people often forget is literally about Ben Solo in the context of the film. From here, we can only hope that Disney greenlights The Hunt for Ben Solo. I also wouldn't be surprised if this project gets absorbed into that Rey movie they were working on, becoming part of that film's central story. I know apparently it was like quietly canceled or maybe indefinitely delayed earlier this year, but who's to say Disney couldn't kill two birds with one stone and combine these storylines to basically give us an epilogue film to the sequel trilogy. And wouldn't that be something? We could see the entire sequel trilogy be redeemed by an epilogue film that puts all the focus on the resolution for the trilogy's best part, its characters, much in the same way that the prequel trilogy was redeemed by expanding on the era and the story, which was the best part of that trilogy. Now we just have to keep the energy up to get this movie made. Skybanner's pretty good, but now I think we gotta ramp it up. We should probably just get a bunch of terrible Ben Solo cosplayers and just have them picket outside of Bob Iger's house until he agrees to make it. How about that?